Preparing.
It's preparing. Okay, great. We're preparing for live.
Yeah.
Are you having a good day?
Yeah, and we're live. Looks like it's spinning. Preparing. Here we are.
It's preparing.
Cool.
Okay, great. We're
So we're
preparing for
live.
live.
Yes, we're live now on YouTube.
Are you having a
So
good day?
I'm
It
having a
seems like it's
we're
doing a
live.
feedback loop.
Preparing. Here we are.
It's
Cool.
preparing. Okay, great. We're
So we're
preparing for
live.
live. I don't know why it's doing that. Are you having a
So
good day? It's repeating itself.
it is repeating itself. Okay. We're recording. We're live. Thanks everybody for it's my first time doing live from Zoom onto YouTube. So first of all, Reagan, thank you for being here on my YouTube channel, New Earth Consciousness. So just to let people know about who Reagan is. So Reagan is a spiritual facilitator. She's an intuitive transformational coach and global world service activist. And she is in Santa Barbara, California. And yeah, I'm excited to just kind of get into conversation with you just about, everything to do with conscious evolution, spiritual transformation, all that
Mm.
kind of stuff.
Yeah, me too. Thank
So
you.
thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. So nice to be with everybody. Yeah, thank you.
So let's open up with your own personal journey. More and more people are awakening, and each person's awakening journey is unique. And I love hearing everybody's story, basically. So, yeah.
Yeah, great. Thank you for asking that question. Yeah, it's been quite an amazing journey. I do feel there's a major shift going on with the awakening process of the world right now. I do feel it viscerally. I'm experiencing it within myself in a deeper capacity. Yeah, it was not like this when I first began the journey. I remember that. So, anyways, yeah, the beginning was when I was born, like the many of us. I came in very awake, very clear, very joyous. And then I chose a set of parents and environment to really challenge my system in some way to remain awake, really, I think, and to see where I slip up consciously. Not a super easy road by any means. I didn't choose easy parents. I definitely chose parents that were going to challenge me kind of in every way around competition, more of a masculine environment. Just a lot of kind of everybody out for themselves, not really experiencing a lot of emotional connection. Just all the above. I kind of learned the ropes in that family. How do you get love and attention here? Well, you've got to do these things. You got to become this. You got to go, go, go. You got to become successful. I did all the things that I was just really seeking outside of myself to receive love. So that was not designed well for my system, being extremely empathic, higher abilities, very sensitive. Eventually, I went to sleep. I absolutely did. I was deeply struggling. I became very sick. I was dying at age 16 from anorexia. And I just absorbed my environment. I just literally just was like, I don't know how else to help these people. I love them so much and I want to be of service. And I didn't have the skills and the understandings of how to process that much density at once. I didn't have a spiritual teacher. I was literally just in an environment where I was just trying to figure out how to survive. And so I became very successful at some things. I became an excellent tennis player. I became, one of the best in the state. I traveled and toured and did all these things. But eventually, because I was shutting down my feminine so greatly, it was just, I think that's really what made me so sick. And I'm very deeply feminine and masculine. I have a very balanced system now. So it was an extraordinary moment to kind of know that I had to stop all of it and move away and completely start new and really kind of go through an identity crisis, basically, and begin to wake up because I chose to kind of leave it all behind, kind of leave myself behind, and still love my family and still thank them and, and go on to do new things. But really what I started to do was open up myself creatively. I started to open myself up into the healing arts. I ended up with very spiritual acting teachers, singing instructors. Like I started to do, drawing and going into nature all the time, starting to go hiking on a consistent basis. I went to go to school in Boulder, Colorado. So I went to the University of Colorado. So I was hiking and skiing, just nature became my dearest friend, finding myself through nature and creativity. And then I started with my first spiritual teacher, spiritual facilitator, spiritual counselor, age probably like early 20s. And I, at that point, was needing it greatly. I had such an abundance of this kind of backlogged pain that wasn't getting processed. It was still sitting there. Nature and creativity really helped, but I wasn't fully clearing it out, right? So I still had a lot of judgment of myself and a lot of just heaviness, just this depression. And I would go in and out of these highs and lows. And I personally just was so tired of being sick and tired. And I met my first facilitator. I went to Agape Spiritual Center in Los Angeles, California, a larger community there. And the very first time I attended, it was like, oh, these are my people. This is like amazing. These are like conscious beings, and there's some wonderful work here. And I just dove headfirst. And so then I ended up in classes and workshops and meditation workshops and drumming classes and just kind of living at this center. And that's where I found that facilitator that I first started working with. And she was amazing. She's very bright, very, very wise, just so, super full of peace. I thought, wow, I want whatever she has, whatever I see in her eyes, whatever I feel in her aura. That's what I know I'm here for. So my first session was already extremely illuminating. I mean, I immediately just dropped off like a chunk of a lot of the pain. And then I went in for hour after hour after hour, just kind of crawling in and out, right? Because there was so much work to do. It was an amazing amount of like courage it took to keep showing up. But I kept showing up, and I would do sometimes many, many hours a week, and I would just keep working. And eventually my own healing capacities and abilities came back online and started to awaken again. And that teacher, including a few others after that, would say, hey, you're not just here to do healing work with me. You're actually here to do healing work with others. You're in fact a healer of healers, a teacher of teachers. And I saw that was quickly coming online as well. So maybe a few years of inner work, deep inner work, I finally went, I am ready to start facilitating for folks. I felt a level of clarity, clairsentience, clairvoyance, clairaudience, enough that I was like, no, I am here to help. So all my first clients, all my first folks that I saw to bring forth healing into the environment of our session were all teachers and healers. And I didn't actually ask for that. It just ended up lining up that way. Somehow all my first folks were that way. It's changed since then. I work with all different people of different walks of life. But yeah, that's how it started. And I still feel like I land in spaces where spirit, the divine creation kind of puts me in a space where I'm helping kind of organize the human process and helping the ones who are helping to organize the human process. And, into a new world order, a new healthy, conscious lifestyle for folks. And so that's kind of been the journey. I mean, I've struggled with anything under the book. I've gone through so many different chapters. Feel like I've lived many, many chapters. You name it, I've probably healed from it as far as some sort of trauma. I feel like I've worn many, many hats. That's part of my awakening journey. I currently have children. I don't have one, I have 5. I have this husband. We've been together for 17 years, and we've been on a spiritual journey since we began. So conscious union, conscious family, divine partnership, really learning about all of that, being a daughter, being a sister, being a friend. I feel my soul came here to really kind of dive into the human process. and really learn from it and like heal from it so that I too could say to others, oh no, I know what that's like and I know what that feels like and I understand those energetic dynamics. I understand conscious relationship and I know what it takes to stay in a relationship. It has not been easy always with my husband in the prior years. We had lots of karma to work through. Children have been my greatest teachers. It hasn't been easy. I didn't have a template for conscious family. So it's not that I came from a conscious family. So I've had to completely let spirit be my guide, teach me about this work as I stumble, as I learn, as I grow, and then I acquire more consciousness. Then I stumble again, then I acquire. So it's been this amazing journey. And I think what also is happening now, a part of the path, is that I kind of the expression, no mud, no lotus. I was definitely in the mud for many years. And then so I was teaching, learning from the mud. I was in the mud. And just maybe in the last while, I've been feeling like I'm teaching and sharing from the lotus, from the petals of who I truly am, letting that kind of expand. And then like all those different facets of the truth of who I am and the multifaceted soul process is starting to be the teacher. So it's been a very different walk these last little while and far more enjoyable, far more peaceful. Definitely lots of wisdom was gained from that. And I certainly do feel the awakening never ends. I don't see that as a destination by any means. I will consistently be doing my inner work to continue to evolve. That's not going to ever conclude. I know that. I just think there was a pretty large chunk of work that needed to be, that I said yes to in this life. I definitely signed up for it. And it was to be resolved in this life. So here we are. That's kind of the big nutshell.
Yeah, yeah, you said a lot of different things there, and I was like, oh, like, questions.
Right.
Right, yeah. So I'm curious about your thoughts. So, you said that you kind of went through an identity crisis, and I'm just by following your story, I'm guessing that was kind of around the time when you were dealing with anorexia and having to heal from that, correct? Like you as a young child and young woman had basically learned how to perform, and that performance was something that made you feel like you belonged, that you mattered, that you were worthy, right? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, the identity crisis. It was so really, so anorexia was what I would say was I was going to die from if I wasn't aware of getting better, right? If I didn't start to, but I was also bulimic. I was very seriously bulimic. So, yes, those two together were kind of honestly something that I could latch onto for how out of control I felt. It was something that, it's like amazing. It's, that of which is food oriented. I remember feeling like it was obviously very embarrassing at the time. It was like, why am I so attached to this food? I don't understand. But it was my attempt to process the pain that was like literally overwhelming my system. I mean, I was literally trying to get it out of my body. I didn't know how to deal with that amount of pain. I was really dying. So, yeah, really what happened was, I mean, here I was competitively playing tennis. I was also a really pretty successful basketball player. And I was really at the peak of my game. And I shocked everyone and said, I can't, I can't do one more day. I mean, I picked up the tennis racket when I was 3. At this point, I'm around 17. And so I have an option to go on to be pro and then play college tennis as well. And then I tell everyone that I'm done. I'm not going to play, but I'm not going to stop. I'm going to start teaching. And I wanted to teach tennis. I thought that sounded much more healthy. I wouldn't be competing anymore. I wouldn't need to win. My well-being, my worth, my value had become locked up in winning. It'd
Right.
become locked up and seeing that the world would give me affection and attention based on winning. And I was winning huge tournaments and, I was in newspapers. I had a little glimpse of what maybe someone would call fame. And it was at a young age and I didn't know how to handle that. And what it appeared to be, the only thing that people cared about was when I won. And if I lost, I felt like the love went away. And that's not possibly even accurate, but I was so young, I didn't really understand. And there was some, I feel, conditional type love going on for sure. I would definitely receive more attention and praise when there was a win. And then I would think that there'd be a definite shift when there wasn't. So really just that exhaustion from living that way anymore. I took a risk and said to the world, I'm done. I'm not going to do this in that way anymore. And sure enough, I did experience a very challenging experience with specifically my father at the moment. He was just so disappointed. I mean, he was incredibly, he had been a coach too. He was
Right.
just like, what are you doing? I've got you sponsored. I mean, it was so shocking. And he didn't take it well. And we were really close. And at that point, I watched him as he just like completely shift his love away. And I went, okay. I mean, my worst nightmare basically at the time of that being a child was that that would happen, that I would find that out. And I wanted to know, I really wanted to know, is this love that I'm feeling, is it real? Is it based in unconditional love? What is unconditional love? I don't even know. I mean, I was on a definite journey to know what that was. And so when I stopped playing, that immediate shift into, oh my gosh, like love is being withdrawn. So I went into a deep healing crisis. I was just like, wow, I'm being completely abandoned. Like if I choose to just stop this thing that is outside of me called tennis, everyone's going to stop loving me. And so I moved away. I definitely struggled with, drugs and alcohol and sex. And was trying to find a way to deal with this pain. I felt very abandoned. I felt very lost. I felt very not loved,
Yeah.
not loved at all. And so I needed to kind of go through that now. I understand that, Spirit was like, okay, so your path
Yeah.
is about self-love. It's
Right.
self-compassion, self-sovereignty.
Like it was part of your soul blueprint in a way. It was kind of like set up, seems like. I mean, do you see it that way? Kind of because,
Yeah, 100%.
right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
Yeah.
everybody, why does it take one person, why does one person never awaken?
Yep.
And why does someone awaken at a young age? Or why does someone awaken in their 40s? Why, it's almost like it's just part of some kind of unseen plan. Sorry for the dings.
That's okay.
But yeah, and so
Yeah.
yeah, you were at this choice point as a soul. It seems it's like, okay, either I just keep going on what I've been kind of groomed to do and what's quote unquote working for others, maybe not for me, or do I, choose myself and
Yeah,
and risk everything? Sounds like you had to risk everything.
I did. I risked everything under the sun. Yeah. And I mean, I knew that I needed to not only stop everything, but I needed to move from my home. And not that it wasn't nice. I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in, a big family, successful family with an identity that they held. And I went, no, I need to break free. I need to be who I am. I need to like not have that name. In fact, I knew that it was so ingrained that I saw that there was a lot of folks kind of becoming within that identity. And I just went, that's not my plan here. So it really was also, I feel there's so many lessons. I mean, I've learned since then. I mean, I've done tons and tons of work within around this, but I feel like I'm in a good, clear space. But one of the greater, harder lessons was, again, the healing of that fear of abandonment, really was a big piece. And I must have experienced that, other lives. I think the abandonment of myself, the abandonment, not of others really, but really of me abandoning myself, that deep kind of intense being hard on yourself, and not lovable, like I'm not good enough, like all that needed to get fully resolved. And, I understand I've been on this planet for quite some time and I keep coming back because, I believe that this is a beautiful place, this is a beautiful planet. We have great opportunity here to evolve. And I don't believe that I don't hold within myself as a soul that I can truly be of assistance to others if I'm holding the very thing that they're struggling with.
Yeah.
how can I really be of service to their soul process? And that's really what I do a lot of work with is soul activation, soul healing, soul emergence. You're really helping people to access their soul, to know where their soul is, to know their soul, to start to emerge their soul. The only way for that really to happen is we got to clear out all those cobwebs, all those, limiting beliefs and doubts and worries and fears and insecurities and the duality. And there's, our attachments, our aversions. There's plenty of stuff. And I just think that I signed up for kind of a hard road, but it was because I wanted to ensure that I did my work. And I know my soul, I think enough that I knew my soul would be like, we can do this. It's not gonna be easy, but this is, and to ensure that it happens, because also an understanding I think I've learned from it was not that it's everybody has their path. So I'm not comparing myself to anyone here, but if I was to have chosen two conscious parents, it's likely I could have even replicated them. I could have even become more like their path. You know what I mean? I could have even missed a few things within myself. I'd been like, oh, I feel so loved, and I don't really, it's not the way it went down for my system. I needed to learn about consciousness. I needed to learn about love. I needed to learn about, what is it for my soul though? Not what you say it is or what the world says it is, but like really to claim it from within myself. And I think the ultimate benefit that could be, if, and I think it's happening now, is sovereignty. To really claim my energy system, to claim my system, to know that I'm okay no matter what, right? To really believe in the eternity of this holy now, to really, step into that knowingness that, gosh, if I can heal from that, anything's possible. There's a limitlessness to this whole thing.
Yeah, and I think that's, well, and I think that's what makes your story so powerful. And when people come probably to work with you, it's like your life has not been a cakewalk. You're
Mm-mm.
an example, so when people, I just think that when people have really they've have transformed a significant amount of darkness or, ignorance or whatever, and they become a beacon of light for others who are in the same place. I know that was really powerful for me in my healing, was meeting someone in my darkest of hours, someone who went through something similar and came out the other side. So when you know that it's possible, and I think that's what happens unfortunately to a lot of people, is they don't think it's possible for them
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
actually discover who they are, to get rid of the darkness if it's showing up as addiction or, depression or any other symptom.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
I
it's possible.
remember that feeling. I remember that feeling during the deepest part of the addiction energy, kind of feeling like, you know, is there help available? Is there, do I have to live this way? And I think that, again, when I accessed any glimmer of light that was still available to access at that moment, I could feel that there was. That's the key here, I think, from at least the process of this soul evolution, which is um, that glimmer always had within it encoded, and I think that's why I chose such a challenging, set of parents and whatnot, was that I had that within myself, that there was always enough of that faith, even if it was like just a little bit,
The
that I went,
mustard
yeah,
seed.
there's like a little nugget here. I'm like, there's something, I know there's light, like I could feel there was just enough light that it gave me hope to keep going. I had faith that there was help, but you're right. I think that that's a big part of our human process now, and has been more in the past, I think, that people don't know that there's help for them, and they don't know that they can heal this thing, and they think they have to live with it. And, you know, there isn't assistance for them. And, sometimes, you know, like there's so much more access now, right? There's so much access to, if you just get onto a YouTube channel, you're going to find 45 teachers in a few minutes that you could be like, well, do I resonate with this teacher? Do I feel like this meditation is serving? So much more availability. Whereas when I didn't have that access. I mean, I don't even think I think I had worked on a computer at school, but it was just, it was just like getting going, and we had computer programs and we didn't have Google.
Yellow pages.
Yeah, I was researching in books. I mean, I still wish kids did, but I mean, I was, in my university studies, I was an English literature major, and I actually went to a library like everything behind you, and I picked up a bunch of books, and I researched major long papers, and I had 8 books. So I didn't have Google. I certainly didn't have ChatGPT. And I didn't have anything like that, as many of us haven't. So access to, and I grew up in the Midwest. I was a Bible Belt, you name it. I was literally on my own without a teacher or facilitator. I don't think that's what's happening now. I think we have a very new planet. We have a new, less arduous path. But I also know that it's a very divine way to begin, that I chose to come in 1976 and the middle of the 70s, and come like, as I did. That's literally designed, that wasn't meant to be a part of Google. And I was meant to learn, about myself throughout this life without that ability. And then here we go, so I think there is some grounded wisdom that can be gained from the arduous path as well. But I don't recommend it. And I do think there's a less circuitous path now. And I can talk about that now with people. I can say, this is what I did. And now from my soul, I can facilitate for you in connection to spirit. And we'll have a very different experience. I didn't have that connection before. That was arduous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when you work with clients, how do you work with them?
Yeah. I work with just the direction of spirit, to be honest. It's really is whatever's called forth in any energy work session, as in accordance to what they need and their soul's calling forth. I think part of what has emerged is my connection from soul to soul process. So we can hear their soul speaking, we can hear their soul's lessons, we can hear, and then spirit kind of brings in what healing modality would be optimal. Typically, it's a rewire of the subconscious that occurs in whatever way. And normally it's through guided meditation. It's through guided kind of processing through the doorways of their soul and connection to spirit, like connecting to their soul, help them to access their soul, and then begin the facilitation process from there, versus the ego possibly facilitating. So doing a lot of work with child parts, parts integration work, doing a lot of work with forgiveness work. I do a lot of work with that. I help people really access their soul, kind of work within inner child work as well, specifically. And then once the inner child's pretty much healed and resolved, we can go on to soul emergence. Usually the inner child kind of needs what it needs before we can do more of the deeper soul work. So that parts integration work is really a big part of what we do. And then anchoring of that integration into someone's system. So it's one thing to kind of work with the parts, but then you want to anchor them and bring them into the soul. So really the dissolve of those parts. And so one can create what's called wholeness, right? Starting to feel whole and complete, not separate, fragmented. So working with all fragmented cells, any past lives, any fragmented lives that have not been resolved, really bringing them into this moment. And often it's really what's going on, right? We just have a lot of unresolved wounding, pain, karma, trauma, drama that's occurred in past lives that did not get resolved. And so just like if I hadn't resolved this life, this would have been another one to bring into the next one. So I did feel that a part of this life specifically, and I'm not saying there weren't others that I attempted, this one, it seems like there's a nice design of it fully resolving if I choose. Sometimes people don't, I know that's not how it's designed. It's like, I'm going to get to this much. So we help people find out what that is. Like, what is this much for you? What lesson did you choose to learn in this life? And let's go into that lesson. Let's start to understand yourself through it. Let's heal the wounds around it. Let's start to bring it into your life so that it's not only becoming understood, but you're starting to create that lesson into your life, right? Start to practice it, learn from it, understand it. So that way you don't have to do that one next time. So it's really about the ultimate resolve of all soul lessons, and to really meet someone where they're at, just because I may have like 18 soul lessons I'm working on doesn't mean that somebody else does, right? So I think that everyone's got a very specific criteria they signed up for. So my job as a facilitator with the help and the guidance of spirit is to illuminate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
I'm so first of all, happy Mother's Day. Hats off to
Oh,
five beautiful children. Um,
thank you. It
yeah,
was really a good one.
yeah. I'm curious, like what, because you and I, we both were kind of connected around Waldorf education, alternative education. What are your thoughts about the children of today? And what do you see, like what are, each generation I feel like maybe has a theme or,
Mhm. Yeah.
collectively. What what can you share about that? What is it that you see
Mhm.
for the young people today? Like where do they need support and what do you see that their gifts are? What is
Yeah. That's a big question. I'll try to sum that up real as best I can. I of course have kids that are, yes, graduated, three of them from Waldorf, so that's a more holistic based environment, which is such a blessing. I mean, it does take a village to raise multiple children, so I'm super grateful for Waldorf. But now I have teenagers, so I can speak on behalf of the teenagers. I can speak on behalf of the younger ones that I seem to be meeting quite a few lately. Um, that are just these bright, like illuminated beings, so many of them. I think that the 20s, 30s are seeking, and they're a part of the, online and they're,
Mhm.
social media is challenging, I think, for sure. I think that there's a lot of competition within them that's getting developed because of it. They're competing with each other and like the way they look, and they're dealing with the crises of their image. And it's they're also a lot of awake beings in those age, like they're getting a lot of wisdom quickly. They're getting very like connected to chat gpt, and they're getting connected to ai, and they're like, wow, they're learning so much. So there's a lot of information coming in very quickly to children in a new way than anything that we've ever experienced. So I'm noticing maybe the 20s 30s, they're here to like really help with the human process, and they're definitely going to have a lot of work to do, as you know, and they're going to have a lot of wisdom in a way that's new. It's like they have access to a button and they can get kind of anything they want. So it's a little bit like almost too many possibilities. And I think it'd be a little bit confusing. And they're not always wanting to write an email now, and they don't want to go out into the world and like work in a job they don't like because they're like, I don't have to. And so it's like jobs are, becoming outdated, as you know, and they're like, I don't want to do that. I don't have to do that. So, okay, well, we still need someone to sweep the floors, and we still need, it's like, what is happening with our planet? So I think, those ages, and then you get into the teenagers, and like I have teenagers, and there's three girls, and I'm just holding them in a place that is like unknown. It's like they came from Waldorf, which is beautiful, but then they chose to be in public schools. And so now I'm watching this very jarring change. So, I can tell you what it looks like from coming from a conscious environment to a more good school, but, not as conscious and heart centered. And it's been hard. They really like, I feel there is we didn't even want them to be on social media or have phones, but then we like waited past anyone else. And then eventually they're begging us, like, please, like, it's the
Yeah.
world we live in. This is how we communicate with each other. I'm like, oh boy. So we were just fighting against that. And it was just a battle that we lost. And it was just like, don't fight this. So we have them on parental controls. My husband's excellent at it. He knows how to turn
Mhm.
things on and off, and we can review things, and we're monitoring, and they don't have unlimited amounts, and it turns off at 9:30 and school nights. And we have all kinds of things that we've put in place, and it's been a big journey to work with that. Like we've been on a consistent check-in process as a couple, like noticing how's this affecting them, having meetings, going over like creating, like, oh, like let's watch this video on what's it called, the social,
Oh
I
yeah,
forget,
I know.
social dilemma, I think. Watch that movie as a family, right? And just went over that with them, and they're looking at us like, what's the big deal? Like this, so what? Like,
Right, it's like teaching them the discernment. I mean, you
yeah.
said something about like, yeah, everything is so available. Like we can
Mhm.
go on YouTube and at any age and be like, learn from this person, that person, the other thing. But there's also like one thing I always said to my kids was like, just when you go to the grocery store, as an example, just because it's on the shelf doesn't mean it's good for you. You know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Check the ingredients.
yeah, I'd have to agree, like it seems like yes, they're very fast and quick to learn things. They're these sponges, but then it's like, okay, now discern
Yeah.
for you what isn't.
And I think that's our job as their parents to help them with that because there isn't a governance system that's conscious around a lot of this yet because it's still pretty new. And there will need to be, just like I'd like to use this analogy because it's true. Like, unfortunately, we didn't have that governance system around and the knowledge and the information around sunscreen. And then look what happened to people's bodies and the skin cancer that rose. So I know that we're often behind on understanding something and we just throw it out into the world and go, oh, what do you think? And then the kids are like, oh my gosh. And then they get involved. And then 20 years later, like, oopsie, didn't mean to, we often learn through hardship on our planet. We often learn from pain. Pain is a great teacher. It's true. But I think there's a way forward that doesn't have to be like that. So these kids are like, they're just like, oh, this is fine. It's normal. Everybody's doing it. And then later you're like, oh, and it's causing you not to go outside as much. You're not going to nature. You're worried about how you look and you're starting to, I mean, I didn't even really kind of look in a mirror for myself, I think, until later teen years. They're already looking in mirrors like at age 10, 9. They're already looking at like, what am I wearing today? And what, makeup. I don't even think I think I wore lip gloss like senior year of high school, like I just didn't know what to do. I didn't even have any access. So maybe I read Cosmopolitan magazine. I mean, I'm sure I did. I just didn't have access to all that. So I don't want to, I choose not to compare, but the truth is there's something happening at a very young age that was not happening before. And I think they are so young to be dealing with that when there's already so much going on within that is changing, developing their brains in development, right? Constantly through these young years, and they're very impressionable. And then you add in all this other stuff, and it's just a lot. It's just a lot for their brain. It's like, it's a fact that their brain is in development. So, so we try to just hold the space, hold the boundaries, like say we love you and we say no, and we say yes for these reasons. And they're like, oh, that's annoying. And my friends have this and they have that. Maybe not as conscious of a family, who knows, right? And it's what it is. We're like, well, that's what they're doing and that's not what we're doing. And you got to get really used to with kids these days, as you know, like they may not like you and they may even hate you for a minute because you've chosen this conscious boundary. And they're like, but that's not what my friends are doing. And you're like, and one day you'll thank me. So
Totally. Yeah, that was
you got
that was my experience with my oldest, he had the trail against us for so long. And once he left, I mean, I didn't expect him to really kind of, turn around and like thank us for anything until maybe he started his own family, for example. But it was really quick, a year or two into being on his own and all of that, he's like, I get it. Wow, you guys were really good parents. I'm like,
Oh,
okay, yes.
it's so gratifying.
But when you're
So
in it,
gratifying.
just like biting your nails, you're just
Yeah,
like, "Oh God, I don't know, am I doing the right thing?"
I
And
know. Yeah.
you have to.
I trust that love is like the way, I trust that, again, let's
Well
go back
said.
full circle to what I experienced. I have done everything I can to love them first. And sometimes, and I am not saying I've been a perfect parent, I've evolved consciously with them. I always loved them. I always did that. But I also did some of the old patterns. Like I did some of the give them things so that they love me or say yes more often than I need to. And my husband's like, what are you doing? Like, he'd be like the disciplinarian and no,
Like,
and he'd have to like hold the space. And I'm like, well, I mean, I kind of think they want to, he's like, no, I'm like, oh, I don't know. I'm sorry. So I definitely pendulum swung. I did. And now I think I've come to this middle area in the last maybe 2, 3 years. And they're like, wait a minute, we can't push you one way or the other. They're like, I'm like, no, I'm right here. So it took a while to get there and it wasn't easy. And again, not coming from a conscious template of family or parenting or marriage, none of that existed for my system. So I really have had to learn it as I go. And yes, I did some conscious parenting work in different groups and teams and different processes and businesses. I did do work and I did read a couple books and I did all that. But mostly my teacher has been through practicing and co-parenting, with my husband, really creating together and prayer, meditation, just listening, crying, like being like, I don't know. I mean, I think my worst, I would say the beginning years when I went asleep was very painful, but I would say some of the most stressful moments has been trying to learn about parenting, like really feeling like, am I doing this right? Am I consciously giving them what they really, genuinely need for their souls? Like, and having to clear out any of that possible watching them suffer and then me being like I had something to do with it. So that was my pain. I'm just saying, that was my growth edge. I needed to really go, no, no, no. Love is the answer. Yes, I need boundaries. If they stumble, if they fall, you're not to blame. You know what I mean? It doesn't all fall on me. It was like this old patterning of just being like, you're the reason. And I was like, oh.
Right.
So, yeah, parenting really has been scrubbing out those remaining spaces of like, it's okay. They will choose. I mean, they're gonna have their path too. They have to clear out their pain and karma, whatever they have to work with. I can't prevent that or save them from that or try to rescue them from that. I've certainly wanted to. So I think that that also has been an incredible crucible. I mean, I think that's why I had five. I mean, as far as the awakening journey, I would owe more to anything parenting consciously now as being my greatest teacher of learning what I came here to learn. Yeah,
Yeah.
all these little teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I would like to say though that these little babies that are coming in, they are really bright. I mean, there's something really special about these new babies. I just spoke at a conference recently and it was in Ojai, California, and I was at a park and there was like these little bright beings, adorable, like aged 1 to 3, something was going on, and they were just following me around and like, what is your name? I mean, they were just like so wise and amazing. And like, I had the most incredible conversations with these babies than anyone at the park. Like, I was like, interesting. They're like, what is going on with you? And then, and then like just multiple conversations with these little babies, and they just kept finding me. And I was like, this is really interesting. Like they are really they are aware and they're awake and they're conscious and they're here to help. They're here to serve. And I could feel that.
Yeah.
There's really something precious about what's happening with the children that are coming in, these little light being star seeds.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yes, they are
Yeah.
right. They say some of the things they say kind of stop you in your tracks sometimes. You're like, wait a minute, how old are you?
I know. Yeah. And some of the parents I've noticed too, like different parents, like couples that are pretty conscious and they are that way.
Yeah.
They already are, they're not like learning as they go. They're just like, hello, we are already awake.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of more conscious parents having conscious children.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, that is
Hmm.
amazing. So, in Santa Barbara, your space is called the Healing Hub, correct?
Well, that
Or-
that is
or
a past location.
Past one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I've been called forth to go to other sanctuaries. Right?
Okay.
I was like busy in my own and I had my own healing space. And then Spirit was like, no, no, you be a little honeybee. So I've been serving a lot at different sanctuaries, specifically a lot in Santa Barbara at Unity recently.
Okay, beautiful.
Yeah.
And so you're on Insight Timer.
Yep, I have a profile there. So there's meditations and we do lives and courses, more courses are coming.
And so if people want to kind of get a taste or an experience of you and your work, that's the best place to go. And then, of course, you have your website.
Yeah, I would say if you want to know more, learn more about what's going on with me, the best place would be getting on my newsletter, because the newsletter not only shows all the upcoming lives that are happening or events or workshops, and I do everything online and some in person still. as well as you receive content. You receive, ancient wisdom teachings in connection to the climate of the world, and then also a free meditation that connects to the celestial energy astrologically, specifically the full moon. So yeah, it's a nice. You get a couple wonderful doses of. I often connect to spirit and just kind of what's happening on the planet energetically. So it prepares you for kind of a full month of work before the next time.
Beautiful.
Mhm. So that's a good way to do it. And that's on my website. I think you get immediately 3 soul activation meditations as well when you sign up.
Cool.
Mhm.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, we're running out of time, and I'm like, oh, I'm not going to be able to get to the conscious, relationship, because you've got, you have such a wealth of information and experience to share on that too.
I do. A
Um,
lot of work on conscious relationship.
yeah, so much was shared here. So, like, just like a sample, and we could go on for hours, but yeah. Really just encourage everyone to definitely check Reagan out. Go to her website, reaganthomson.com.
Mm.
Look her up on the Insight Timer, and if you're in Santa Barbara, you can look her up. So,
Yeah, thank you.
Reagan, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Shania. This is a nice conversation. Thank you.
All right,
Thanks,
and thank
everybody.
you everybody for watching.
Thank you so much.
Ciao for now. And here, how do I turn it off? Question.